Hi, my name is Will, and I work as a digital marketing data analyst. This is a subset of a data analyst that specializes in marketing tools a bit more than programming. And we're going to be talking about how you can use ChatGPT and related similar AI tools to better help you become and maintain a job as a digital marketing data analyst. I have experience in my job, and I'm going to tell you how you can use this tool to improve your output, your productivity, your effectiveness, and solve problems accurately and quicker. So I definitely do think that AI tools will change the game plan for a lot of jobs, especially ones that require coding, because I think that's the key area where something like this will help. I'm going to be jumping soon into a platform and showing you what we can do with ChatGPT. But for just some context, I think the biggest part where this can help you is maintaining that job and then helping you write code, fix code, especially if you're not the best programmer. You shouldn't rely on this, and they're probably still going to ask you during job interviews for some real experience and to demonstrate that in terms of programming. So that's an area where you still probably can't pull out ChatGPT, and employers still, for whatever reason, prefer you know actual programming off the top of your head. But just something to keep in mind. The employers have not gotten to that point where they're like, yeah, like I don't care how you solve the job as long as you can prove it, even if you use a tool like ChatGPT. I'll let you, demo that in the interview. At least I found on the job itself, you can use it in certain instances to help fuel your productivity, but in certain instances, you still cannot. So let me hop onto my screen share here. And then from here, we're going to show you some of the key ways that I think something like a Chat GPT can really help you succeed. So I think the first big one would be something where you do have um, to write SQL. I think that is the most important, commonly used language for SQL or for data analysts or any related jobs. And so in order for us to kind of uh, leverage that, I think it does help that you still have a basic, at least beginner level of understanding of SQL. But even if you don't, I think you can still kind of leverage this tool to succeed. And another example we'll get to shortly after is regex. That's another language that's sometimes used here. So in fact, let's start with regex because it's the simpler language. Regex will be used less often, but especially if you're working with a lot of online marketing tools, you will need it to it's a language to help you essentially match a lot of varying conditions, but done concisely. So, for example, in Google Tag Manager, I may have to set something to say, this contains this page path backslash contact, but also contains backslash about, but does not contain backslash uh, Monday. And, complex URL structures like that. And you just want an entire filter for that for analytics or for to track certain things that happen on certain pages but not other pages. And so sometimes it is a huge mess to, click a bunch of buttons to set up a bunch of conditions for each of those, or sometimes impossible based on the limitations of a platform. Something like a Google Tag Manager trigger may only have a limited amount of spots to set that condition. And so to be able to summarize all of that, you could do that with one line of regex. So with regex, it's fairly simple. You could say something like this. This is the prompt I would recommend, but there's various ways of prompting it. But I think learning the skill of prompting it better will help you get the result better because this tool is not perfect. If you do not explicitly give good instructions, you will not get the right output. I've seen it spit out regex that is incorrect. I've seen it spit out SQL that's incorrect. And that's why you also have to test and confirm after you get anything from this. You can't just assume it's correct. So I might write a prompt like, you are a regex expert. Please write some regex in a concise way. And I say in a concise way now because I had some situations where I've had to write some really more complex regex, and then it spits back this super long one that's a paragraph long, and I'm like, geez. And then I ask it afterwards as a follow-up question, can you make this more concise? And then they give us a more concise version that gets the job done. And I'm like, yeah, this is much better. Um, Not only for me to read and confirm, but also so that when we put it into the tool, it just looks a lot cleaner. So I'm going to say, please write some regex in a concise way that matches URLs that contain backslash about and backslash contact, but not backslash Monday. I'm going to hit enter, give it a few seconds, and then boom, we have something here. Once again, you have to test this type of stuff. So you want to use a tool like regex 101, where you can actually copy this regex and you can actually put it in here at the top. And then you can write a URL, let's say www.example.com/contact, let's say HTTPS example.com/about google.com/Monday. So in this example, the regex was wrong. So here it's saying an escape delimiter must be escaped in most languages with a backslash. So here, as you can see, the tool ChatGPT forgot to consider delimiters. And once again, like I hinted at, knowing a basic level of these languages, which I don't think it's hard to learn, don't be lazy. You sometimes still need it to debug it when it writes it wrong. So what it's saying here is that for a lot of coding languages, when you just use a backslash, that has multiple uses. So if you don't mark it with a symbol beforehand, which they call a delimiter, then the backslash is confusing or it can be misinterpreted for another use. Therefore, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this error code and I'm going to say this regex doesn't work because an escape delimiter must be escaped in most cases with a backslash. Can you fix this, please? You don't have to add the please, but sometimes you do because maybe these robot overlords will take over one day like Terminator. That's what people say. I don't usually say please, to be honest, but in that case I did. So typically I've never seen this tool disagree with me. You almost always say certainly, and then it'll make a correction. So then we're going to copy and paste this correction in here, and boom. Now we've confirmed that the regex works because these two rows that we wanted to match have lit up with a light blue background, whereas this one we didn't want it to match did not. Now, once again, you can make this, let's say you have a more complex request for regex, you can continue here and then follow it up with something more intensive. So we can go ahead and say something like, now I also want it to include just contact, but nothing else that has a subdirectory within backslash contact. So, for example, URLs that end in backslash contact backslash Tuesday or backslash contact backslash food backslash give should not be included, but the exact URL that just ends in backslash contact should still be included. Now, this seems maybe make-believe or too complex for at first glance, if you're a complete beginner, if you're just a young college grad and you've never been in the real world of marketing. But frankly, this is actually still rather simple one. I've come across more complex situations, and these are real situations because sometimes big websites have like a whole subdirectory of URLs that follow this breadcrumb trail, but they only want the parent URL or in a few select key pages within that subdirectory to be tracked in some type of tracking setup, or analytic setup or segment. Then you need a regex like this to create that filter. So I'm going to hit enter and see if it understands what I'm saying. I won't say I'm the best Chat GPT writer, but I have learned over time to be very explicit and specific with my prompts to get the right answer. So there we go. And it even provides a short explanation sometimes. Another fantastic way of learning regex in hands-on situations is you can ask and prompt this tool, can you explain that for me? Or I don't get this part at the end, period, star, dollar sign. Can you explain that to me? And then it will give you an answer, which is usually almost always correct. In this case, it'll say it matches, the rest of the string. Anyhow, once again, we're going to paste this in here with this. And this is just one of many regex testing tools that are free online. But here we can see that it does match those ones. But if I were to say example.com/contact/king, it should not match, and it does not. So this regex operates exactly how I want it to, which is fantastic. We're going to give that an A plus, and then we're going to move on to a SQL example. So this, I think, is the key thing that we can do to really level up our productivity as a analyst of some sort. So I'm going to create a new chat because I don't want the existing chat history to pollute this prompt. And then in this case, we want to actually start with some SQL. Now, SQL can be used typically in a database, some cloud warehouse, something where there's a lot of data and you want to query or process something. So it depends exactly on the use case, but there are variations of it. And depending on the variations, the cloud warehouse, you can actually have different prompts or different situations or questions you want to ask. Now, in my case, and I would say in many marketing analyst cases, you're going to be using SQL as it relates to BigQuery, and you're probably mostly going to be processing Google Analytics for data. And this is unique because they have a kind of, it is SQL, but it is slightly different SQL specified for a very specific system. So therefore, there are some slight differences in how you write it. And more importantly, the data itself is structured and nested in a unique way. Once again, you can learn a lot about these things through tutorials, documentation. There's even gurus out there like CMO Ahava who sell courses that will teach you how to do this. I'm not affiliated. I don't get a sponsorship or anything. I'm just giving you other resources if you want to learn more about SQL for Google Analytics 4. But yeah, I personally benefited a lot from CMO's course, so I would just give it a free plug there. Anyhow, you want to write something specific to the system for those reasons. So I might start a prompt out with, you are a Google BigQuery expert, and you know how to write SQL in BigQuery to query Google Analytics for data accurately. Now, it really depends on your version of Chat GPT as well. I would say like a year ago, Chat GPT, at least the free version, was not up to date with Google Analytics 4 and BigQuery, mostly because GA4 had just come out and they were still in the process of sunsetting GA3, which was very different. So you have to be careful of that as well. You don't want to ask or prompt an AI tool something that it isn't caught up on yet, and the database hasn't updated to understand. So just keep that in mind. If that's the case, you may need to get the premium version or whatnot. But in this case, this version is up to date. and it does know all these things. So giving that context will really help. And now there's a bunch of different SQL requests you may get. I'll give you one simple one and one more complex one. I get some very complex ones, to be frank, but you probably won't need to get to that state just yet. Plus, once you have something that's working and functioning, you can also paste that in here as a model for the prompt. You could say, here is an example, colon, and then it can use that as a model to more accurately give you a prompt. I'm not going to do that in this case just because it's proprietary information, but I will give you some mock examples here. So let's just do a simple beginner one now. Write some SQL to pull the average engagement time as a sum as well, and break that down by day, and also and pull the amount of sessions as well. Actually, let me just rephrase that so it doesn't get confused. Pull the average. Let me say it a different way, because average engagement time. This also, it helps if you know Google Analytics 4 well, but average engagement time technically is not a metric that comes out of GA4's data anymore. You have to pull engagement time, which is a sum, and then you have to do your own calculation to average that out. It used to be an actual metric in GA3, which is why it's still often requested, but unfortunately it's not. So instead, I'm just going to say engagement time, and sessions count. Sessions is another, it's a one of a few metrics for measuring website traffic. It's a user session essentially. So I'm going to hit enter, and then let's see what that spits out. And then boom, you have this beautiful query here that gets the job done. You can actually run this in BigQuery, see if it comes back and breaks or if it actually works. Now, typically, like I said, you still need to know some SQL to get the greases rolling. I don't think you could do this with zero. You need at least like a light beginner level, because look here, this from statement needs to be updated so that your project ID and your data set and then your event table is queried. So that has to be specified. You can find that in BigQuery. The way Google Analytics, once you connect it to BigQuery, works is it will load it into a project you name and then a data set within that. And then, of course, there's going to be event tables in there. So this line has to be replaced with the real data in there, just at first glance. So there's slight modifications you'd have to make to this. And you very well, for sure, would need to run this query, because I don't fully trust Chat GPT to do the job for you. So that would be a simple example. I was just throwing a moderately more complicated one. I'm going to say now, great, now write a SQL query to pull the total sessions and users by device type, and also pull a column by day. And we need that column by day because once you load it into a data visualization tool like Looker Studio, then you're going to have to want a time range control of some sort. And for them to kind of segment each time by the new time range, you're going to need a date of some sort. And that's why you need to split it by date. And then we're going to go ahead and hit enter here and then see if we can pull this out. So this one's certainly a bit more complicated because you also need to order by device type, and then you're going to have to count that. So I would still say this is simpler than some of the ones I've gotten. We've had to query and create tables with maybe 10 different dimensions. So it can be a lot. And then there's all sorts of ways you can slice and dice it. It gets more confusing, but you get the point. So to kind of wrap this up and give you my conclusions here, ChatGPT and similar tools can definitely help fuel and leverage and catapult your success, but it's not going to be your one size fits all, get rich quick, be lazy, do nothing type of work. You're still better off knowing some basic SQL and regex yourself. There's all sorts of other things like actual strategy, actually selecting the metrics you want to measure, um, knowing how to combine all these other tools together and visualize the data. There's all sorts of things that AI still can't do, may or may never do as well as a human. And so you should not come in and say, "Oh yeah, I know nothing. I'm not qualified at all for this job, but I'm going to apply," and then hope that somehow they're going to let you use ChatGPT on the job interview, and then you're going to be able to get by that way and then skate by on the job just writing prompts. I know that's supposedly the dream, but nonetheless, it is helpful. I know actual developers who actually spend most of the time coding, whereas for me, I'm only spending a portion of my time coding. And even these developers will say that, while it does have its holes and it can't do everything, and sometimes it will be wrong, it's sometimes written some full-length code that will get you like 80% of the way there. So it certainly is a big time saver. It will certainly help with your productivity a lot. And there's certainly times where I do have a complex programming situation and I just describe it in detail in a prompt, give examples, and boom, it spits out a solution when I would have had to problem solve for a lot longer to get it done. So unfortunately, I don't think it will solve everything. I do think you still need to show your stuff because employers are still going to be looking for you to show your expertise. Just you. No AI tools or chat GPT is going to be allowed typically on a job interview or during the hiring process. So you're still going to need to know your stuff. But once you get the job and in certain situations, you can use it to kind of expedite or solve complex problems. But it's not going to answer everything once again. There's all sorts of strategy and marketing tools and connecting of tools and being able to understand how to use a marketing tool like Google Tag Manager or Looker Studio or Tableau that these AI tools just can't solve for yet. They would have to really be able to not only understand these tools, but strategize, understand the strategy, and then also essentially move the cursor and click around for you. Maybe one day we'll get there because I have heard some rumblings of somewhat effective AI data viz tools, but we are still not there yet. Give it a few more years. And that's essentially what this tool can do. Please like and subscribe if you like this video. Join my free email newsletter down below where I offer free coaching calls, help you on your journey to get this job, but also just exclusive tips I learned nowhere, I leave and reveal nowhere else. And thank you so much for watching.